Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Monica. I like to post anti-MLM life and some true crime content here on this channel. So if any of that interests you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to stick around. In today's video, I am bringing you anti-MLM content. So of course, just as a disclaimer, this video is for entertainment purposes only and just my opinions along with the opinions of the person that I'm interviewing. The person that I'm interviewing today, his name is Zach. He has been an anti-MLM advocate for a little bit now, along with being an accountant. So I decided that we were going to talk about a few things that also included taxes, because a lot of times you'll hear very weird things coming from some of these MLM reps regarding taxes, regarding just recently I reacted to a paparazzi rep who talked about SSI, and so that's something that we did touch base on as well. If you remember the last time that I wore this shirt, it's my Americans Against MLM shirt. I talked about how 100% of the proceeds of their merch goes to an anti-MLM advocate who is battling stage 4 cancer. This person that I interviewed today, Zach, he is the one that gets these donations. So I think it was great that some of you will be able to put a face to the name and be able to see where these donations are going to and that it is going for a good cause. So again, if you are interested in the merch, just remember that it is going to a good place and it's being donated to a very amazing person. I did want to say thank you so much to Zach, if you're watching this, for joining me in today's video. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into this interview. I guess we can start off with, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and kind of introduce yourself to the world of YouTube?
Well, my name's Zach Parker. I was a biology teacher that decided I didn't like teaching, and so I went back to school and became an accountant because, that makes sense. And as for being anti-MLM, it was more of, somebody would send you a post and we'd laugh about it and kind of mock them or whatever. And then I started seeing things more and more about what the consultants were being advised to do with their money. And I saw some of the tax advice that was floating around, and that's when I started looking a little deeper, and I realized there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
So that's when I started kind of speaking out more and being more open to discussing everything.
Yeah. So I had recently, this is actually a good question to ask you because you're an expert now, because you're in accounting. So I recently had a rep that I reacted to, and in there she talked about how if you make under, I believe it's $600 that she said in the video, that if you make under $600 in a year, you don't have to file your taxes as an MLM rep. Is that correct? And if it is or isn't, if you can just explain a little bit why.
Technically, no. Technically, you should claim everything you make, but if you make less than $600, the company does not have to report that to the IRS, and they don't have to issue a 1099. And so odds are, if you make less than $600 and the company doesn't send you a 1099, the IRS has no way to know that you made that money unless you're audited for another reason. So yes and no.
Okay.
Off the record, I would say, don't worry about it. When you're having to follow the actual letter of the tax code, which makes me sick to think about, then I would say yes.
Yeah, because she was talking about the whole, if you make under that, and then she went on to this isn't really, I mean, it's not really much to do with accounting or anything, but she did go on to say, because someone had asked her on the live if it affects your SSI. And when I looked it up, because she called it Social Security, but when I looked it up, it seemed as though it's not actually, it's not the same thing as regular Social Security. It's actually something complete. It's about disability and stuff like that. So I feel like that's dangerous advice to be giving. And I feel as though a lot of these MLM reps, they do give a lot of this kind of financial advice and this kind of life advice when they don't really know what they're talking about.
Well, you touched on another area that I happen to know because I'm
Okay.
on SSI disability.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
for I don't know who knows, but I'm not shy. I actually have stage 4 adrenal cancer,
Okay.
and so um, I'm on SSI disability because it's, in between treatments. We never know, am I going to have 3 months off treatment or 6 months? And if I go back to work, then I have to go through a whole new redetermining period. If you've ever dealt with Social Security office, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those, like, once you get it, until you're absolutely sure you're going to be able to go back to work full time with no problems, you don't do anything to mess it up.
Yeah.
Um, with Social Security disability, you are allowed to earn a certain amount of money a month.
Mm-hmm.
My lawyer told me keep it below 1,000. She
Mm-hmm.
said keep below 1,000 and you're good. Um, I would assume that most MLM reps don't clear $1,000 in income in a month.
And I did want to mention to any of my viewers, in case you guys watched a really long time ago when I wore my Americans Against MLM shirt and I said that the donations go to a certain person, this is the certain person, in case you guys were wondering.
It is me. And like I'm not shy. Like it doesn't bother me to talk about. So any questions you have, you can ask, and I will try and answer them. I will try to remember to look to see them to answer them. There are a lot of scummy people on the internet, so I'm happy to prove to you that I've had all these horrible things done to me. Um, I've got the the scars to prove it.
So, with that being said, now that we introduced that, because I wasn't sure if you wanted me to talk about that in this interview. So, now that you've openly talked about it, because of your situation and that you're on disability and everything like that, have you gotten, I guess before you were very outspoken about being anti MLM, did you get targeted for MLMs?
Just once. It was a former student of mine, which was kind of disappointing because now I know the person didn't pay attention in my class. But they, I actually remember I was in Michigan. I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was going to the University of Michigan Cancer Center. I was on a clinical trial. So I was taking a new drug. We didn't know what dose to give, what dose would be effective, what would be too much. We're figuring all of that out. And I get a message, and first it's, hey, I'm thinking about you and just checking on you. How you doing? And so, I get those occasionally, and I answer. And then the next one's about the product. And they didn't mention the product's name, but it's Plexus. Um,
Mm,
how if I was interested, they have a product that would reduce the side effects, and I'm like, we don't even know what the side effects are. Like we're figuring that out. Like I'm a human guinea pig,
mm,
um, and so that was really kind of the only time that that anyone said anything directly to me.
mm,
But people have, they've kind of told like My family, my mom, oh, he should try this or he should try that. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works, Mom.
I had someone actually come in and they were an essential oil pun. Um, and they came in and they were telling me how they like the products. I won't name which company, but they said they do like the products and they don't do it to recruit people. They do it because they just want the discount, which of course you're still contributing to the MLM structure. But they told me that they found out through a friend of a friend of a friend, so the grapevine, that there was a rep that I don't know their name, so I can't even report them or anything like that. But they said that this rep told someone who was suffering and they did have cancer. This particular person decided that they were going to stop all of their treatment and use the essential oils instead. And of course, this person did not make it, but it's just I can't believe, first of all, I can't believe that they would target someone with some kind of, whether it be a chronic illness or whether it be cancer, or even if it's just something like having a migraine here and there. I will never understand why they will go after these people, and people like yourself as well, and think that that's okay, let alone tell them that this can cure or this can help, because they're not your doctor. They don't know what you're going through. They don't have your chart in front of them. So that's just it's to me, it's not even just sad, but it's insulting and it's disgusting. So that's just something I wanted to mention, because allegedly, in my opinion, allegedly, have to say that so I don't get in trouble.
Um, eh, I understand. I understand better than anyone uh, that feeling of feeling desperate
Hmm.
and you don't feel like you have a whole lot of options.
Hmm.
And there are shameless people who will exploit anyone
Hmm.
to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
And I mean that's nothing new. Um,
I mean, we've had snake oil salesmen for so long.
yeah,
and
yeah,
I see it in my industry as well, because of our business. I see it all the time. I've had people come in here, and I talk about this on my channel all the time, but I've had people come in here say that someone down the street told the customer that it cured their grandma's cancer. And I'm like, you cannot make these claims at all. And it's dangerous and it's irresponsible, to be completely honest.
yeah. It's very very dangerous. Anybody that wants to look up what I have, it's called adrenocortical carcinoma, and it's typically a death sentence. I've beaten all the projections. I've passed 5 years. And I was lucky and I was unlucky in that when I was finishing up my biology degree, I actually took cancer biology. And so that was great because when they start using these terms, I know what they mean. And it was also bad because when they were using these terms, I knew what they meant. Um, and so you get somebody that gets a diagnosis, like a pancreatic cancer or a liver cancer, something that has a high mortality rate, and they go online and all they see is bad news. And then they're depressed and they're vulnerable. And one of these reps shows up like, I don't know, take your supernatural being that's offering you, a cure for a price. And it's completely irresponsible. It's horrifying. Don't prey on vulnerable people. especially those that don't have the background to really understand,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that I feel as though, I mean, I've had family members, so I can only see it from a family member perspective, but I just, because the way that I think about it is, how can you go after someone that is literally, because some people, unlike yourself, because obviously you're going through the clinical trial, you're going through all of the treatments and everything, but some people, they are looking for that last resort. They're looking for something to give them some kind of hope, and it's, we see it a lot, and I've seen it a lot too, because I've gotten so many screenshots sent to me. I did one video, how long ago was it? It was a woman that was part of an MLM, that was some, it was an MLM that I've never heard of before. And she was on there talking about, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but she had this combination of things that she was using. It was the CBD from the MLM company, along with some kind of supplements from the MLM company, and then dog dewormer. And that's what her husband was taking for his cancer. And according to her, that helped him.
Um, I actually have heard something about that. There
Okay.
have been studies um, in terms of looking at anti-parasitic drugs and
Okay.
their effectiveness in cancers, because the anti-parasitic drugs are targeting eukaryotic cells, which
Mm-hmm.
is what we're made up of. We're eukaryotes. Um, and actually, for a while, I was on a drug called mebendazole, which is actually it's basically a dewormer that humans take. And
Okay.
typically they would take, if your kid got into something and got this, they'd give him one dose and that'd be it. He'd be done. Um, in my case, I was taking 2 pills a day, one in the morning, one at night. Um, so there is actually some scientific research to kind of back up taking like the dewormers and the anti-parasitic drugs.
Okay.
As
It's,
for the other stuff, the supplements and the CBD, that's
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and I work in the CBD industry, and uh, whenever I see some of these reps that say and make these claims, it just, those are the people that ruin it because you can't be out here saying that it's going to cure X, Y, and Z. And because there aren't studies that show certain things that these reps are saying. I mean, there's really not that too many studies out there regardless, but it's good that I asked you about that dewormer thing, because I was very curious as to what that had to do with her husband's cancer. And a lot of people in the comment section were saying the same thing, that they didn't understand what that had to do with it. So at least now we kind of have a little bit of an explanation on that. Um, and
Um,
that does kind of make sense if you think about it the way that you explained it.
um, I mean, I progressed when I was taking it, but with with my cancer, there's not a whole lot in terms of treatment. So a lot of our treatments is just, let's just kind of throw shit against the wall and see if something sticks.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that is one that they've actually started researching and studying. So that's not as out there
Hmm.
as I would have thought, hearing that 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah. 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 I never heard of anything like that either. So that's why when I saw that, I was very confused. To
Yeah,
say the
yeah.
least.
No, it's yeah, first time I heard it, I was like, what the, like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I was actually talking to my former cancer biology professor, and he kind of laid it out for
Mhm.
me like I did here. Only he used lot more words that he said I was supposed to remember from his classes, but didn't. Like I mean, I should remember this stuff, but you use it or you lose it, and I
Yeah.
don't teach biology anymore, so I've kind of lost a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually something that I would agree with too, because there are certain things that, I mean, even, and this is nothing to do with school, but even with the fact that my first language was Polish, but then I learned English as soon as I started school. But now that I've been speaking English predominantly, if I don't speak to my parents often enough in Polish, I actually start to forget certain words. I can read it and I can understand it, but sometimes it's like I lose the words. And this is a language that was my first language. So it has nothing to do with school, but that's another example that sometimes, or I'll be mid sentence and I won't know how to say it in Polish, so I'll say it in English.
Yeah. Well,
So a little combination of the two. But yeah, so okay, we kind of got off topic, but we did speak about a few things. I did want to ask you too, when it comes to the accounting portion, did you ever do taxes for, and I don't know if this is something that you can talk about freely. If you can't, that's fine. Then I just won't put this in the video. But have you ever come in contact with an MLM rep when it comes to doing taxes or during tax season? Have they ever asked you any kind of questions or some kind of guidance?
you know, it was only once, and was a client who had been a client for years. And it was a situation where she sold something, and all the ladies at her work, you know, got this from her. And so she had it down where she basically broke even every year. And so it wasn't anything crazy where they come in thinking, you know, they've made 10 grand because that's what their upline told them. And then you do their taxes and you call them and go, you lost $4,000.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually, this is why sometimes when people ask me, how do you help someone get out of an MLM, or how do you try to help them open up their eyes? And I was a business major in college, so I did have to take a ton of accounting classes. And so I still do, the setup is kind of still the same, but I always tell people, just, you don't have to get all fancy with it. Just open up a Google Doc. They have the Excel spreadsheets, put in your income and your expenses, and then formulate everything so that it can figure out what your actual profit is. Because when I was Mary Kay, I wasn't in Mary Kay as long as I was with Beachbody. So with Mary Kay, I realized very quickly that this was not for me, and I realized I lost a ton of money because that was back in the day. I know that nowadays you're not supposed to do the inventory loading, but that's what I did back then. And what ended up happening was I did return some of the product, but I forget the rate that you return it at. But at that point in time, I already had so much X amount of credit card debt, because not only did I buy all of that inventory, but then they told me to buy all of these extra added items when you go to people's houses, because this is before social media really blew up. And this is probably, I want to say this was probably about a year before you started seeing all of those invites to those online parties and everything. So they were still doing it the old school way. But then with Beachbody, so I didn't really do any kind of Excel spreadsheet with Mary Kay. But then when it came to Beachbody, that's what I did with Beachbody, because I was spending so much time on Beachbody, and it was to the point where I ended up figuring out, I forget the exact number, but this was really eye opening for me, because once I figured out my income and my expenses, what I was in reality making at the end of the month, because of course you have to hold your PV, and Shakeology was the perfect amount for PV, and you had it on auto ship and everything like that. So once I figured all of that out and I divided it by how many hours I was spending, it was in the negative. I was not making any money. I wasn't even making minimum wage. And that's why I always tell people to keep track of it that way, and just to make sure, because yes, it's also good to keep track of everything too, because I know with my accountant when at the end of the year, it's better for me to have everything separated for them so that they don't have to constantly ask me, okay, well, what was this expense for? I have it all. I know how to have everything in its own category. But I feel like that's a good way of helping people, because then they'll realize just how much in the red they are. And how you were saying before, where there was that one person that was breaking even. I mean, depending on how long you're in the MLM for, I feel as though breaking even, if this is something that you're doing full time, for example, it's just that's sad, honestly.
Yeah. This person, it was not their full-time job. And so I was not worried about this person. But no, you're right. Absolutely keep track of all your expenses, your revenue. In reality, you should probably have a separate bank account for your
Mhm.
business and only run business transactions through that. Because if you take it to an accountant,
Mhm.
they will separate all your receipts, and they will separate them at a rate of about $150 an hour.
Mhm.
Um, I know because when I started doing tax work and I was the low guy on the totem pole, I was the guy that got the boxes of receipts to separate. And all I did was pull out a receipt and put it in a spreadsheet, like you said, so I could get totals. I've seen um, people that have been upset with family members, and basically the upline has told them to not keep track of their business expenses, because if you keep track of it at first, it'll be a negative and you'll get out, and you don't want to focus on the negatives. And it's mind-blowing that somebody would say that, and it's even worse that somebody believes it and follows it. But, and this is something we haven't talked about, but I mean, I guess we can.
Mhm.
A lot of these organizations are very cult-like.
Mhm.
And so, from a pure business perspective, you should always keep track of everything, your expenses, your revenue. Um, for those that are listening that don't know, when you buy a bunch of stuff and pile it into your garage to stay active, you don't get to claim that on your taxes. It's considered an asset, and it you put it on your tax return, but you don't get to deduct it anywhere. You don't get to deduct your inventory until you actually sell it to an outside customer. So if you have a garage full of anything, Mary Kay, Herbalife, eh, that's not doing you any favors on your taxes. It's just there. So I think that's one of the big misconceptions is when you start talking about inventory, people don't understand that you don't get to just buy a bunch of stuff and then deduct it on your taxes. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, there is an actual regulation now that says um, you can't have inventory loading, that you can't keep a bunch of it because of the fact that so many people have done that in the past. I'd have to look it up 100% because I don't know off the top of my head, but I did read it somewhere. I'm not sure how accurate that is,
I
but
could I could try and find it, but
okay.
because I've been obviously dealing with health, I haven't kept up with all the changes.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that would be a change that they would push, is to discourage fraudulent techniques that
Mm-hmm.
these people follow. I mean, that's it's called channel stuffing,
Mm-hmm.
is what it's called. And anybody that's ever worked retail, at the end of the quarter, you will have vendors that will pile in more stuff than they're ever going to sell before their next delivery, and they're basically pushing it all in to hit their quarterly numbers. It's called channel stuffing. It's technically a form of fraud, but it's one of those, unless it's just insanely out of control, then most people aren't gonna worry about it. They're just gonna go, it's the end of the quarter, this is gonna suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good to know that. But I did want to, because you did touch base on the cult aspect of MLMs, and I did just want to say, because some people, and it's fine if people disagree that MLMs are nothing like cults, and that's totally fine, but there's a reason why they are called commercial cults. There's a reason why it gets compared, the MLM structure and the MLM industry, there's a reason why it gets compared to the bite model. And if you are a new viewer, if you are new to the anti-MLM community, I highly recommend looking into the bite model by Stephen Hassan, because it'll help you understand a little bit more as to why people compare them to cults. And I did a video on this very, very early on when I first started doing my anti-MLM content. I want to say probably about a month or so after my first video came out, I had someone mention in the comments section to look up the bite model. And this was very early on in my anti-MLM research and everything like that, because I was in MLMs and then I was very against the MLMs, but I didn't start speaking out until I stumbled upon anti-MLM content on YouTube. So I didn't do all that much research. I just wanted to talk about my experience. And when I started looking into the bite model and I started comparing it to my experience in the MLM, it's not everything, but a lot of things were very eerily similar. And I feel as though people forget about that portion of the MLM industry and being anti MLM, because you can sit here and you can get annoyed with the hey girl or the hey hon messages, but there's more of a deeper rooted problem in the MLM industry. It's not just the surface level things. I mean, even if you want to look at, because I've seen some Amway, because everyone knows Amway. Amway's been around for a very long time. But there was a video that I came across on YouTube. I can't find it now, so I don't know if it's been removed or if it's being hidden through the algorithm. But there was a video of a girl or a woman, I mean, and she didn't know that it was for Amway. Someone told her about a business opportunity, and they said there's this meeting, and it was more of a larger, not convention, but a larger conference. So it was kind of like a convention, but not really. And so she went to it. She took some, um, oh my gosh, it just left my tongue what I was going to say, the word I was going to use. Anyway, she had some footage from like behind the scenes while she was there, and she posted it on YouTube. And I'm going to say it right now, it looked very cult like. They are, and I have no problem with anyone who practices any kind of religion in my eyes. As long as you're a good person, I don't care if you practice or don't practice. But I know that they're very heavily into using religion in their business model, I guess you could say, or their business in general. But the way that they were using it, it just seemed so cult like. And people forget about that portion of MLMs.
I I don't think I have it now, because for those that, well, none of your listeners know this, I wouldn't think. My house flooded twice in less than a week. I don't know, probably about a month and a half ago. And so I've had to rearrange everything, and I had to clear a bunch of stuff out because I was basically piling stuff up and shoving it to one side of the room, and they put the floor in. I'd shove it to the other side, and they put the rest of the floor in. But I had a paper, there was a peer-reviewed paper. I think it was released in an economics journal that talked about MLMs and some of their cult-like tendencies. And it's not hard to see. So it's the phenomenon, and I can't think of it because it's been forever since I had general psych. But you go and you buy a red Nissan Sentra, and you're like, no one in this town has this red Nissan Sentra. And then you buy it, and on the way home, you see 3 people driving the exact same car. You never saw them before. And so if you start looking at the way the MLM reps and the MLM companies act, you'll go, oh my God, how did I miss this before? Mm-hmm. And you miss it the same way everyone misses it. You see it and you go, that's kind of cringy, and you move on. But, would what happened in the Nexium case, the one with Allison Mack, yep, would that have happened if it wasn't very cult-like, if not a cult? I mean, the guy was like branding his initials on people, and I'm assuming they were somewhat doing it willingly. I mean, they were obviously being manipulated and abused, but when I worked for a large multinational corporation, if someone had said they were going to do that to me, I would have just gotten fired right there, because for some reason, these people were so enamored with this guy that they helped him, do all these horrible things. If you're wondering how an MLM is like a cult, just look. You'll find it.
Yeah, because they always do this. I was just watching this morning while I was getting ready. I was more so listening to it than watching, but there was a video by the Recovering Humbot, and she was reacting to Carl Deichler, which is the CEO of Beachbody. In that video, she had a good point that there was this portion of it where he really was love bombing, and that's something that a lot of people, if you're looking for that sisterhood from the MLM company, if that's what you're looking for, then you're going to turn a blind eye to the love bombing. You're not going to think of it as they're manipulating me. You're going to see that as someone actually believes in me for the first time in my life. And because I know a lot of people that they've told me that they were looking for some kind of community and they found it with the MLM, but it was very short-lived because that's when they realized that it is a very terrible business structure, and it is very cult-like, because it's just like how you said before too, where they say no negativity, but it's smart to keep track of, like what you were talking about. It's smart to keep track of your expenses and everything like that. That's not negativity. And they take anything, if you're a naysayer, or if you it's so apparent when you watch some of their Insta stories. So if you watch reaction videos on YouTube, I just reacted to someone who said that I don't give a and it was a Beachbody coach, but you should care. And it's not necessarily, and I said this in that reaction video because I just edited it, but in that I said, I'm all for if someone wants to pursue their dreams and go after their dreams. but I'm not for someone going after their delusions, because it's one thing to start your own business how we did. It's one thing to do that. It's one thing to even start some kind of a hobby, but it's another thing if you're going to quit a job to work for an MLM full time, think you're a business owner, think anyone who speaks out against the MLM company is a negative person and you can't have them in your life. They'll sit there and say how if you work a 9 to 5, you're you're not doing the right thing. But what they don't realize is you need 9 to 5 people, for example, in the customer service department for Beachbody. If something goes wrong with one of your clients' orders of Shakeology, they don't go to you. They go to the corporate of Beachbody. So that's something that they don't think about. And also, if everyone was in an MLM, we wouldn't have doctors, we wouldn't have scientists, we wouldn't have accountants, we wouldn't have who else? Law enforcement. We wouldn't have all of these things that or EMTs. Who's gonna come get you when you call 911? Who's gonna fix your car? You need a mechanic. Who's gonna fix your plumbing? And they don't think about these things because they think that the MLM is your golden ticket, but it's not.
Well, there's that, and there are the people that are so delusional that they think the MLM and the products have all the answers. You don't need doctors and scientists. We have the guy that killed his baby.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, and you're a hater. There was a rep. Sorry to interrupt, but there was a rep that I read. If anyone believes that story is true, then they're a hater.
well, I'm a hater, and Mr. Young is burning in hell. That's what I think about that. But it's not, like you said, the 9 to 5 people are the ones that make all this possible. They don't think about that. They just see it as an insult. Well, I have all this freedom. I work from home on my phone, and it's like, yeah. And Friday at 5 o'clock when I leave work, guess what? I don't spend all weekend doing
Mm-hmm.
posting on social media, begging people to buy whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at home and I don't have to think about the mortgage industry, which is what I worked in right before I went on disability. And I'm not worried, I don't have to worry about, at midnight somebody sending me a message and, oh God, if I wait a couple hours to answer them, I might miss a sale and my upline's going to be upset with me. You know, you message me at midnight, I probably won't answer. If you really need something and it's important, that's one thing, but like I don't see that as being like a compliment. Like I complete orders at all hours of the night and I'm like, I like to sleep.
Yeah.
Like I don't want work always holding over my head like that. I worked a job like that where even when you came home, you were never away from it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was absolutely miserable. And I'm not going to blame the company for me developing cancer, but they contributed a lot because they put me in an environment that was not healthy and refused to they refused to do what they told us they were doing. It's one of those situations.
It's they just these reps they're so far, some of them are so far gone, and I've gotten comments before because indoctrination does happen in these MLMs. And I know that a lot of people have, even in the comment section, told me that they're starting to get sick of that argument that some of these reps, they do have a terrible moral compass before they join the MLM, and the MLM kind of makes it 10 times worse. And while I do agree with that, there's also the people who, even some people at the very top of these companies, they don't think about what they're actually doing. They don't think about how they're making money off of people losing money. Because the way that the MLM structure is, the reason why it gets compared to pyramid schemes is because you need to have people losing money at the bottom in order for the whole thing to work. Because everyone can't be making a six-figure income, how some of these reps say. So it's just I know that people get really annoyed with me with that argument, but I know that there's some people who they really, the MLM industry and the MLM company almost brainwash them. Because recently I did a reaction to a Monate Zoom call. The upline that was in that video, she was talking about how she texts the CEO of Monate all the time. And a lot of people, when they join these companies, they think of that as, well, I want that to be my goal. I want to be to the point where I can talk to the leader all the time. And because even when I was in Beachbody, I was in someone's very large downline. And Amanda MC here on YouTube, she recently did a reaction to this particular coach. And this coach, I remember when I first joined, my uplines were telling me, oh, well, if you do really well, you can win a phone call, a Zoom call with this person. And as soon as I was told that, I was thinking in my head, do people actually care that much to talk to an upline? Because they put her on this really high pedestal, and I didn't get it. Because I did take a lot of psychology courses as electives actually in college and high school. So I looked at it from a different perspective. And while yes, I did get sucked into the MLM industry, that's why sometimes when people say only stupid people join the MLM industry, I don't agree with that. And whenever I hear that, I don't get offended because everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I don't believe that, because I've seen, you even hear it from some of these reps that they have fitness professionals, they have doctors, they have professionals in the field that are also selling. Even they'll say we have hairstylists shilling Monate products, knowing what happened to so many women when they lost their hair. So it's one of those things where it's not necessarily that only stupid people join MLMs. I don't agree with that, because, not to toot my own horn, but I don't think I'm stupid.
No, no, no. I know plenty of people that are well educated,
hmm
smart people. I can talk to them about basically anything and have a pretty good conversation. And at one time or another, or maybe even currently, they've been sucked in.
hmm
Um, and so no, it's not only stupid people. Although it does seem like the stupid ones are the most vocal.
hmm
So they're the ones that people see. And, that's probably because, the smart people are not going to claim that their essential oils cure cancer. Yeah, that I don't buy that argument either, that it's only stupid people. You know, back to the job, I was very desperate for a change. And I was lucky enough that I was able to go back to school to get out. But, there are people who maybe they don't have that option, and someone comes along and offers them a spot on their team. They only have 3 VIP spots left,
hmm
and, they're desperate. And so they jump in with both feet
Yeah.
because they've got to get out of their current situation, and this is right now the only option they have to try and do that.
It's also because if you ever watch these MLM reps, they always have, because we all know that they talk about their why. That's a really big thing that they always talk about. But usually their why is either a rags to riches story or some kind of sob story. And if you ever talk to other MLM reps, even the ones that are at the bottom, a lot of these people, they aren't in a good spot, so to speak. Most of the time, you'll see them say, I was in debt. I wanted to stay home with my kids. I was in a bad place mentally and physically. If you want to look at like Beachbody or the health and wellness MLM companies, and they'll say all of these things that this is their why. Very rarely, I think I have yet to come across an MLM rep that says, I was in a really good spot before, but I wanted to join just to join. I actually seeked out this MLM company. You never hear that. And there's a reason for it, because they target people at their most vulnerable state. And that's why I know some MLM reps, they say, oh, well, when the anti-MLM community calls the MLM industry predatory, that's such a horrible thing to say because predatory is such a strong word. Well, yes, it is a strong word, but the MLM company is targeting specific people, and they teach their MLM reps to do that very type of marketing tactic because they teach them. In the training that I was in for Beachbody, I was told, talk about your why. Talk about why you decided to try Beachbody. And I'm not going to lie, there's only so many ways that I could talk about why I joined Beachbody on social media when I'm being told that I have to post 5 times a day, every single day. There's only so many ways.
And that's another thing. It's like, unless I specifically was working a job running social media for a giant corporation, I'm not posting anything about myself 5 times a day anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of the time I'm on Twitter just calling people idiots. And that's what I do on social media.
And you post your dogs too.
I post my dogs and I call people idiots.
Yeah.
And the people I call idiots are idiots, just for the record. But no, I don't know. I don't know where Athena is, but my big dog, my Saint Bernard, for those listening, she got sick a couple weeks ago, and she lost a ton of weight, and she couldn't even get up by herself. So I was having to pick her up for her to move anywhere. And I took her to the vet, and she had an infection, and they were going to have to do surgery to get it out because it got so bad so quick. Like, we noticed that she wasn't feeling good on a Wednesday. On Friday, I got her antibiotics. I took her in on Monday, and they were like, no, we got to do surgery. And the vet kind of called me and was like, well, you know, she's 8 years old. She's a giant breed. She's probably not going to make it through the surgery. And I said, you got to do it. I said, I can't let her just suffer like this. So they did it. And she called me and said she made it through surgery and she's waking up, but we want to keep her overnight. I said, yeah, that's fine. And now she's back to her normal self, you know, getting this close to me when I'm asleep. And so I'll wake up and I'm eye to eye with a St. Bernard. That is scary.
That's really funny. I'm glad that she's okay though, because I did see you post about it, and then I went to go comment on it, and my whole entire Twitter feed just like refreshed itself. But yeah, my friend had a Saint Bernard. I don't call them Saint Bernards. I call them Beethovens because of the movie Beethoven.
Well,
So,
I, I've I've told people, I was like, oh, she's a Saint Bernard, and they're like, what's that? And I was like, ever seen Beethoven? They're like, yes. I'm like, there you
yeah.
go. But I think my roommate was eating, and so they're in there begging for food.
Yep, that's how my girls are. As soon as they hear, and I can sit there and try to very carefully open something, but they'll hear it no matter what, and they can be on the completely opposite side of the house, and they'll come running over, and they'll just want to eat everything. My puggle is a garbage disposal. The pit bull, well, she's a pit bull mix. Um, she has a sensitive stomach, so I have to watch what she eats, but. Yeah, it sounds like you've had a rough couple of months recently.
It was not fun, and none of it had to do with my health at all.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I had water coming up through the old laminate, so I called some guys in, and they came in and pulled it up, and the people that had my house before me did a lot of DUI or DIY projects.
Mhm.
And these were not people that should be doing DIY. And so the hot water heater was in a closet, but they had like put boards up and like covered it up, and not just like sitting in there, like they had attached these things in there and basically built like a box around the hot water heater. And so we got that off, and the closet was really hot, and so it's a busted hot water heater. I mean, the one I had was built in like 2006 or something.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So we get it, we turn off the hot water, we get it out, get everything dried up. I buy a new hot water heater. We have someone come put it in. We turn it on. I notice a little bit of water running along that wall, but we just pulled the whole hot water heater out, and so we're assuming that the tank just dumped some. I go to bed, and I get up the next morning, the whole living room's flooded again. I'm like, so I turn the hot water off, and we get it dried up. Didn't take very long. I mean, fortunately, this time it was just still a slab. We hadn't, I hadn't been in a rush to put new flooring down. So the guy comes back. We pull the hot water heater out. We cut the wall. And the geniuses that built this house, the copper tube that ran from the hot water heater into the wall, they decided that actually getting like a clamp and clamping the pipe to the stud, like you're supposed to do, was too much work. So they took a nail, nailed it into the stud, and bent it around the copper pipe.
That sounds like a really bad time.
And sure enough, right where that nail was, when we turned on the water, you just saw it. So, yeah, it was not an enjoyable couple weeks here. And then I had to make a trip to Houston while all that was going on.
That's terrible. That's so terrible.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
knock on wood on my side too.
yeah, it's taken care of now, but yeah, it sucked.
Yeah. That just sounds like a terrible. Yeah, because I kept seeing some of your updates on Twitter, and I was like, this guy's going through it right now. This is just one bad thing after the other.
It's when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. But I think I'm on the other side of it now. I got new flooring, got a new hot water heater in. I've been slowly putting things back where they go.
Hmm.
Did you see the artwork on my desk?
No, I don't think so. Did I? Maybe. Oh, yes, I did. I did. That was so funny. You did. I think you sent me a picture of that on Twitter.
I might have.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I I purchased that design because I had a friend who said that she can make it,
Mm-hmm.
and then things happen, and she just hasn't had the time. But my roommate was doing that at
Mm-hmm.
work at her old job, and so I gave her that design. I was like, "Can you make this?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so she made that for
That's
me.
cool. That's awesome.
Uh, and for those who don't know, just look up BitConnect.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find it.
But so I know that we got very off topic, but I did want to ask another question for because I do have some people that watch me that are small business owners that are legitimate small business owners, not MLM reps. And of course, we have our accountant do all of our accounting and all of our taxes and everything for us. But for those people who do it on their own that are small business owners, do you have any advice for them or recommendations of things that they should know when it comes to the taxes portion?
Um, it's hard to say because every state is different,
Mm-hmm.
um, and sometimes drastically different.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, have a working relationship with a CPA that's licensed in your state. That you know maybe you pay for monthly bookkeeping, um, because a good set of books will make everything you do much easier.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need a separate business account, because you can get the bank statement, you can go through, you can see how much money came into that account, which would be your revenue. You can see how much money you spent, what you spent it on, and that's your expenses. You can classify it, and it's very easy. Um, but yeah, get with the CPA that's licensed in your state, um, and talk to them and make sure that you're complying with whatever filing requirements you have. Some states want you to file things monthly. Some states you have to file some things monthly and then some things quarterly. Keep good records. If I had to
Yeah.
give you one piece of advice, keep good records, and everything else will be much easier.
Yeah, I know that for because I started my blog very many years ago and then it started to become profitable. And I talked to my accountant and they were like, it's best if you do taxes for it because I was making a decent amount of money and I didn't want the IRS to come knocking at my door. So I was, I still have all of my receipts. You can barely read any of them because they're so faded, but I still have some of my receipts dating all the way back to 2013, 2014. So, and because I'm a little nuts. I've heard so many horror stories about the IRS coming in for something that happened 10 years ago. So I always say, you know what? I'm going to hold all of my receipts forever and ever just in case.
Um, I think it's 7 years is I think
Okay.
what they can go back. But like the state I live in, Arkansas, the state can go back as many years as they want, and I don't want to, you know, prescribe nefarious means to the state government, but we've had very vocal people running in contested races, and all of a sudden the state comes in and audits their business and finds that, well, you purchased this in 2001, and this is what you're saying it's for, but you don't have the original receipt to prove that, so we think that's for your personal use, so now you owe us X amount of dollars. And they put section of their website, you know John Smith of so and so owes this amount of money for blah blah blah. And so
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if you follow Roberta Blevins, but she just posted something. I forget if it was on Facebook or Instagram, but someone had asked. This was in a mom group on Facebook, looking for essential oils, not MLM products. And it was Young Living, doTERRA. I sell Young Living. I sell doTERRA. And it was just like one after the other. And that's why, so, and sometimes my friends that are moms, when they tell me some of the things that, I mean, it's like an MLM cesspool in these groups. And I know that now there are a lot of groups that are starting to get a little more strict and starting to say no MLMs, no self promotion or anything like that, which I think that that's great, because MLMs, it's literally everywhere, everywhere.
Yeah. That
So
they're like locusts.
yeah.
They've swarmed, and they're all around us, destroying everything we know and love.
Yeah, especially with COVID. I mean, I went on Facebook the other day, and because I've been super busy over the past couple of days, but every once in a while I'll hop on there and kind of scroll and look for some funny memes, because that's usually what I share all the time is funny memes or dog videos. But anyway, so I'm scrolling, and I want to say every other post was an MLM post. And I didn't see it as much before as I do now. And it's really disheartening that these MLM companies have preyed so much and have used the pandemic to their advantage. I think that that is so disgusting. And it's just because these people, unless you do your due diligence and you do your research, but I'm not gonna lie. If you're to the point where you have been unemployed for months now, and someone gives you a way out, you're gonna jump on it, because it's either you have nothing, or at least you try. And these MLM reps, they make it out to be like that. And I think that that's why there's been such a large spike, because people are just believing it. And it's just sad, because as much as the anti MLM community has grown ever since I made my first video on YouTube, it's just we can't keep up, because new MLMs are popping up, or they're using certain vulnerable situations, especially right now, as a way to shill the opportunity, um, because it's not about the products. It's not. Let's be honest here. It's not about the products. It's about recruitment. It's about building your team.
Well, I mean, they've always, jumped on things,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in very tasteless ways. I remember when one of the airlines um, basically killed somebody's dog with their poor
I remember
handling of.
that.
Yeah, I don't remember which airline it was,
Yeah, I remember that. I cried when I heard that.
and there were reps posting things trying to tie saving this dog into whatever they were selling. I think it was probably essential oils, but it's like, come on, like pretend to have a little bit of tact.
Well, I've seen them use 9/11. I've seen them use, um, what's another one? I mean, I've seen them use all of, it's just, there's another one that was really terrible. I forget what it was. But 9/11 came to mind because that date's coming up. But yeah, so we'll see a bunch of those posts within what's, as of today, as we're doing this interview, 10 more days, we'll see those posts. But I just,
I mean, every time I see like a new low, I'm just no longer surprised.
yeah.
It's like, well, of course they're tying, the bombing of Pearl Harbor into their lavender oils. Like,
It's
of course they are.
yeah, it's one of
And
those like, here we go again. Well, we have been talking for an hour and a half. Um, do you want to add anything else?
No, I can't think of anything. I think we covered pretty much what you emailed me. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask, and I will try and remember to check and answer. If not, you can get a hold of me and you can forward them to me, and I'll do my best to.
I'll put your Twitter information in the description box too.
If you want to see me call people stupid all day, feel free. It's me calling people stupid and dog pictures. So.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me, and also just especially with everything that's going on right now for you. I mean, you've had a really couple of weeks. So I'm glad that everything is better. So thank you so much for chatting with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Okay.
I'm always here.
All right, everyone, if you have watched up to here, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you have any questions for Zach in particular, he did say throughout the video that he was going to try to keep up with the comments, but if there's anything in particular, I will leave his Twitter account below. So if you want to message him or if you want to tweet him, I know that you can't message someone until you're following each other on Twitter, so you can always tweet him, or you can contact me and I will kind of be the messenger of the message. So let me know what you guys think about this video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Monica reporting to you live from a highway. Bye.